The week is almost over. And I want to know where you guys are watching from, for those of you who are tuning live, and for those of you who come in afterward. I'm, of course, in Brooklyn, New York. It's a dreary day up here, thanks to the hurricane. Marty Dickinson, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Great to share an important message with all your viewers.
And remind me, you're in Colorado, right?
Denver, Colorado, yeah. Home of the mountain fires that have just been extinguished by the snow we had in the mountains. Awesome week.
That's fantastic. That makes me so happy. That's some much needed good news this week, right?
It keeps up.
Yeah, so we're coming to you from the East and West Coast today, which is really exciting. It's 3:00 here, so I guess it's around noon with you, over by you. And so let us know where you are. Let us know where you're listening in from. Just last week we had somebody from Australia, somebody from the UK, somebody from India, so that was really exciting. Marty is here today to talk with us about books and why it's so important to have one, and I'm really excited to get into that. So first question I ask everybody is, how do you take your coffee?
Straight, black, and plenty of it. It
Nice.
is a fuel.
Nice. Well, you would probably, if you drink your coffee black, you'll probably laugh at my wimpy, lavender infused oat milk coffee, oat milk latte that I usually drink in the morning.
I thought I drank strong coffee until one day I went to work for a software developer, and all the programmers, they made sludge. It wasn't coffee, it was sludge. It was so thick. And I took one sip and I just about gagged. And of course, after I was there for about 3 months, it was the only thing I could drink after that point, because that's what was made. You either drank that or you had nothing. Right. So I guess we adapt to our surroundings.
And so now you drink sludge.
No. I backed off from that, but I started drinking higher quantities than I probably should, for sure.
Right. That's hilarious. Wow. So software developers, huh? I didn't know that was a thing with them. Really coffee. Yeah. So it's good to know. I've been really fascinated by the reason I asked the coffee question. Not just because I love coffee. By the way, I already had my coffee. I'm drinking water right now. The reason I asked that question is because I'm fascinated by how people start their day. And the coffee ritual, or the tea ritual, or the morning yoga, or what you eat for breakfast. Sure. To me, that really sets the tone for the day. So that's why I asked that question.
I used to start with a walk. That was my favorite thing to do. I just put on whatever clothes were nearby, and I just go out for mile or 2 mile walk and come back and get started. But I've changed that process. Now I wake up. I think it's too early to go for a walk at 4:30 in the morning. So I get up and I have coffee first. It gets me going. It gets my brain thinking. And then I go for a walk or go to the gym and work out. And when I come back, I have all these fresh ideas that I might not have had if I just rolled out of bed and then went for a walk. So just a little incubation period of ideas. That's really changed the way that I get started in the day, and it's helped out a lot.
So you're an early riser, 4:30 in the morning?
Yeah, I really am now. I didn't used to be that way. Actually, when I wrote one of my books, I have a web marketing all-in-one for dummies book here that I co-authored 2 of these monsters with, and the way that I wrote those is the only time I had in the day was to wait until the Sunday before the Monday deadline for the chapter that it would have to be submitted, and I would start working on it at 9 o'clock at night, and I'd make a fresh pot of coffee and I'd stay up all night and I'd write one chapter, and I would submit that chapter within 10 minutes of the deadline. Noon was
Oh my gosh.
Monday. It took me that long to do it. And the only way I could do it was just constant fuel of coffee. I mean, I'm not saying it's healthy. It just about killed me probably, but it's the only way it got done. I had to practically have a gun to my head to have that sense of urgency to create the content and just get it done. It's a terrible way to write a book, and thank goodness I've come up with better ways to do it since.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that sounds to me like you saying that, you know, the Sunday before the Monday deadline, up all night. That reminds me of graduate school, you know, like, or, you know, junior year of college or senior year of college when you're writing your thesis, right? Like, that's what I think. That's impressive. You wrote a whole book that way.
I can't do that again. I can't do that anymore. I mean, that was 2009 when we came out with the first edition. So it's been a while, and as you get older, those all-nighters get to be tougher. So I've sort of switched my direction where I'm much more productive in the morning now. And it's important to recognize that as you age and grow older, to recognize when your schedule needs to change as well to be at your top performance.
Wow. So you wrote a book in 2009 then, the For Dummies book, which is awesome. I love that. I love that series, that idea. And now you help people write their own books. Yeah.
Well, on my wall back here, you can see get my finger right there. Right there is a book on the wall. That was my very first one. It was in 2004 when I wrote that, and it's called Winning the Internet Dogfight. Don't try to go get it on Amazon. It's actually still listed on Amazon, but you can't buy it, and don't try to buy it because it's so outdated. I mean, there's really not a lot from 2004 internet marketing standards that would apply today.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting experience for me and taught me a lot about myself, let alone the whole book publishing process. And you know, as the story goes, we brought in about 250 grand of new business from that book in it was about 7 or 8 months or so it took to get that, which was great. That's a great success story. I invested $5,000 to make the book, get 250 grand back. Pretty good return on investment.
Wonderful.
Of course, I had to practically shut down my business to do the services end because I had so much new business coming in. I couldn't hire people fast enough. And eventually we did, and we caught up and we grew from there. But it was the experience part of it taught me that a lot about the writing process. And it showed me how important it is to have a nonfiction book to outline what you are an expert in.
Right.
Everybody's an expert in something. Even if you don't think you're an expert in something, you are, because if you're over 10 years old, you're an expert at being alive for 10 years. Nobody has stayed alive quite like you. You have your own genuine method, and that's what needs to be featured in your first nonfiction book, is that one thing that you are truly an expert at.
I love that. You're an expert at being alive, right? So we actually, but it's funny, but it's true. Like, we all have our own unique thing that we do, right? Like, if somebody comes to you for writing a book, you're going to give them something completely unique to anybody else who's going to help somebody else write a book, right? So that's kind of the impetus behind, you know, even though other people do what you do, nobody does it quite like you.
Well, I think part of it is that a lot of people don't even really know what they are really good at. We have one of the books we wrote is, whoops, I guess I don't have that one right here handy like I usually do. We have I remember Susie Hayes. She's a 35-year therapist. You'd think a therapist knows what they're really, really good at, right? Well, when I talked to her originally, I said, so what's your process? And she said, well, I don't have a process. Every client that comes in that I provide these therapy services for is different from the next. So I said, oh, okay, so you don't have a process. Everybody's custom. So I'm just going to walk into your office and we're going to start talking, right? Oh, no. Before you talk to me, you need to go to my website and fill out a form so I know something about you. Oh, step one. So then I fill out this form and I just get my car and come over, right? Well, no, you have to do an intake meeting with me first. So she had all these steps involved. And I was like, that's your process. And we narrowed it down to 5 steps. And we assigned an acronym to those 5 steps. FREED spells the word freed, right?
Yeah.
Part of our title, freed from stuck. That's what she helps people do, is to get
I love that. Oh.
So because it was a 5-step process, it was something that she could bring to the stage, to webinars, to virtual live events. She can present on and podcasts. Wherever she goes, she can present this 5-step process for people to get unstuck. And that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear this is a big book, right? There's a lot of stuff in there. People don't have time for stuff like this. They want the steps. Just give me the steps. What do I have to do to have a transformation from point A to point B? So that's what I look for, is what are the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 steps that you are truly an expert at, that nobody else can claim. And I call those a gem. It's your genuine expert method. It's all yours, and it's a gem. It's your moneymaker too.
I love that. That it's so simple, right? It's so simple, and yet it's easier said than done. Because we as subject matter experts, we have the curse of knowledge, right? You know, if I come to you and I say, you know, here, like I'm one of those people who has the initial reaction of saying, well, no, every client's different, right? Like I almost wanted to say that to you. So I love that story because I think it is something that we, as the people with the curse of knowledge, need help distilling down.
Yeah, and I think it starts out being difficult trying to think of that method, but once you narrow it down to certain steps and you think of it as, use an analogy to come up with those steps, it really helps. Like, I was just on a call with a client. We're trying to figure out his steps, his method, his genuine expert method, and he was actually from Saudi Arabia. It's our first overseas client, and we're working with him on it's a leadership book, but with a very interesting angle that I'll have to share with you another time. But with him, the best thing I could come up with was a restaurant that's starting up, like a McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's is all around the world, right? So everyone can relate to that. Well, you don't just open up McDonald's one day, right? No, you go through steps. You have to find the location, get the permits, you have to do all these things. Then you have the pre-launch, and then you have the cutting of the ribbon. And then once your McDonald's takes off, what do you want to do? You want to start another one, right? You want to share it. You want it to build. You want it to expand. It's the same thing with virtually every process. We just finished the World Series, right? Baseball. I've been a youth sports coach for 18 seasons now, and I have a bat on my wall back here, a bunch of baseball pictures, a bunch of hats and everything. I can use the same analogy with swinging a baseball bat. What do you do with a baseball? You're going to go hit a baseball in a baseball game. What are you going to do? Well, you can't hit it from the dugout. Step one is you have to go to the plate, right? You have to make that decision to go to the plate. And then what do? Do you just swing from there? No, you have to take a stance, and you have to get into position and wait for that ball to come to you, and then you go back in your swing before you go forward. So all of these things can be applied to a step-by-step sequence. So when you make that analogy, coming up with your genuine expert method is easy.
It's fantastic. So when I met you, I was really surprised because I found out that your process takes how long?
We get all of the initial content for the book done usually in less than a week.
Less than a week.
Yep.
So if I start working with you today, in less than a week, I know what my process is. Yeah. I know what I'm an expert at. I know what information is going to go into my book.
That's right. We have usually 5 to 6 sessions of 2 hours apiece. And the first one is all dedicated to coming up with your gem and outlining your book. And then from there, it's just a matter of the sections of the book, getting the content from you. We had one of our new authors lives in Washington, D.C., and his name is Richard Rossi. Very successful guy. And I said, Richard, we have to get you away from your desk. Are you going to be answering emails and taking other phone calls? And I said, go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
He said, go for a walk? Yeah, get your headset, you go for a walk, and Amanda, my business partner, and we will get on the phone with you, and we will extract the content that we need for your book from there. And he is having a blast. He's walking up and down the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. He passed Nancy Pelosi twice because she goes on a daily walk I heard about. So he's like, oh, hi, Nancy. And he doesn't have a care in the world. He's totally away from everything at work, and that's where you generate the best content, is when you're away from things. I grew up in the world of writing, where a writing coach would tell me to get up an hour earlier or 2 hours earlier, churn out 500 words a day, whether you want to or not, every day. And what happens? Writer's block.
Right.
There is no writer's block with our process. I had to come up with a system that would allow no writer's block to occur. It should be a fun process to write.
Yeah. And what I love about that is, as somebody who has experienced creative block, and I think we all do, but, it sounds like there's no blank page you ever have to look at, right? There's no, what do I say next? Right. Because you have your framework.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. Wow.
And that part's nothing new. I mean, people have been hiring ghostwriters for years. Anybody can go pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to get a really class A ghostwriter, and they'll interview you for a couple hours, and then they'll disappear for 3, 4, 5 months, and then you'll get your manuscript. But this is not ghostwriting. It's something different. In fact, I don't even have a word for it, really, except for collaborative writing, because the writer and me, and also my business partner, we all join forces together to create this content. We kind of get inside your mind a little bit. We partner with your mind, and that's how we get in there to get you into what I call the go zone, where you're just flowing. I mean, that information's just coming out. You don't even know where it's coming from, and we just keep digging a little deeper, and that's where we get to the good stuff. And this is the kind of information that most people, they just wouldn't come up with this stuff on their own. So it not only is a faster way to produce content, but it's content that you wouldn't normally produce on your own.
That's awesome. So what's your sweet spot then? Do you usually work with entrepreneurs? Do you work with subject matter experts? Who's your ideal client then?
Our ideal client is a business owner, an author, a current author that just doesn't like writing anymore, always had trouble with writing, somebody that doesn't have time for it. Those are really our main targets, and especially new professional speakers, people that are wanting to get into the speaking world. And you can't go too many places right now and speak in person, but there are so many opportunities on Virtual Live to get out there and give speeches the same way that you would if you were on stage, and to the same quantity of people. That's what's exciting. And you don't even have to travel to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It is all happening. I've been involved with National Speakers Association since I came out with my first book in 2004. Get up on stage or on Virtual Live, and you talk about your process. People buy your book. They want to hire you for services. You get bigger speaking gigs, and it just escalates from there. And that's an exciting way to do it. In fact, I think what I really try to encourage people to do is think of writing, speaking, and internet marketing as 3 components that all work together. And if you leave any one of those out of your mix, you're just leaving money on the table. So you really need to do all 3.
I love that. So these days, right, it seems like everybody's writing a book. Mm-hmm. It seems like, every other entrepreneur that I talk to is like, yeah, either they want to write a book, or they have written a book, or they're in the process, or, something, right? So do you feel that the market that there's still a lot of opportunity around book writing? What are your thoughts around that?
Absolutely, I do. Oh, absolutely. I think of having a nonfiction book for a business owner is a lot like what used to be thought of as getting a master's degree. You brought up graduate school, and it used to be if you wanted to excel in the corporate world beyond a certain point, check it off. You've got to have that master's degree. I think the same thing is true of the nonfiction book, that you can only really go so far in awareness and broadness of your business if you outline what you are an expert at. It has to be a certain kind of book, and then promote that and share your message with the world. There are going to be a lot of people that try to use your method and get to that success level on their own, and that's fine. You need to be fine with that. Share the method and allow people to be successful and encourage them. But there's going to be this other quadrant that says, hey, now that I understand your process, I want you to help me to do it.
Right.
that's where the big bucks come from. It's not from book sales itself. I don't care if you sell a book or not. You're still going to get business to make having a book become worthwhile. And, Marie, I'll give you another reason for writing a book. We're in a kind of a weird time right now with all the COVID stuff and things resurging again. I think there needs to be more emphasis in writing a book just to document your legacy. I mean, if you do nothing else, put me aside for a minute. If you're really good at something, document what you're good at and how you do it, and give it to your children, your grandchildren, and let them have an understanding of what you did in life to become the successful person that you are. If you had a successful marriage, if you're celebrating your 30th, 40th, or 50th anniversary, write it out so that people that you're related to can enjoy that and understand it later in life. They might be too young right now to understand it, but they'll understand later.
That's fantastic, and this time, this crazy time that we're in, right? COVID, people are doing really cool things. There's it's funny to say this, but there's a lot of opportunity right now. I've seen people build businesses. I've seen them, expand their businesses. I've seen them write books, produce podcasts. There are all these things that people do right now. And what you're saying is, mortality is on everybody's mind right now. So why not now, right?
Yeah, it is. It is on everybody's mind. And it just made me think of one of our books is called How to Speak for Fun and Profit. And this was written by, and notice the size. I mean, we're not talking 5-inch thick books. This is something you could read on an airplane in a few hours from one place to another.
Right.
This is what people want to consume. Just give me the steps without all the fluff. Well, this book was written by Joe Saba. And when we produced this book for him, Joe was in his mid-80s. He had a stroke 12 years earlier. So his whole left side was paralyzed. And yet still, for those 12 years, he continued a workshop he gave to teach people how to get into this professional speaking business. He co-founded the Colorado chapter of National Speakers Association. I went to his workshop when I started getting involved in speaking, like thousands of others. Yeah. And I thought, somebody needs to put his legacy into a book. How has he taught thousands of people how to become professional speakers? So we produced the book. And then in 2019, toward the end of the year, Joe passed. We have his book in a legacy that people can continue to learn his method for the next 50, 100 years. That's the power of a nonfiction book.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And you're to your point, right? Like you don't have to write the next War and Peace, right? You don't have to write the next poem or anything like that. That's a book that, I could read in an hour and I could probably get more out of that than if I were to sit down and try to read, an encyclopedia's worth of information about the same topic, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I got a phone call from somebody after we launched Joe's book. She got the book, got the ebook version, and it was like 10 o'clock at night on launch day. I remember it. She called me from Texas. She looked us up in the book and she tracked us down, went to the website, went to producemybook.com, and she went to find the contact information. She called me on the phone because my phone number is listed. It's right there. I love to talk to people. So the phone number is there. She calls me the next day, Wednesday morning, and she says, I'm not sure whether to be upset with you or really happy with you. It's like, what did I do? Who are you? And she said, well, I just read Joe Saba's book, How to Speak for Fun and Profit. And Marty, I have spent thousands of dollars with speaking coaches trying to teach me how to get involved in the speaking business, and it's totally backwards from what Joe teaches in the book. I never thought of doing what is in that book. And I scrapped my coaches. I stayed up all night writing notes on pieces of paper of my action steps of how I'm going to do this on my own without these coaches, because they were steering me in the wrong direction. And I really just about cried when she told me that. That's like the most awesome testimonial you can get from anybody of your book, is that you saved them from going in one direction and you provided them with a different vehicle to get them.
Yeah. That's wow. That's and in this world that we are in, where it's a great example, right? You can spend tens of thousands of dollars learning from somebody who claims they're going to get you on stages, right? I know I see that come across my inbox all the time. It's like, I'm going to teach you how to make $1 million in speaking. My course is $15,000 or whatever it is, right? But she had this book, which I'm assuming couldn't be much more than $20, $30.
She got the ebook version. It was free. It was part of her Prime membership with Amazon.
Right. Fair enough. So she got it for free. But even if she would have bought it, it's a nominal thing. Yeah. Now she knows whether or not she aligns with the method, right? And now if she wants to buy a product or a course or something like that, she's already sort of aware that she's aligned with it. So that's the power. Wow. What a testimonial to you and to the book and to your process.
One of the missions I have for 2021 is to inspire more younger authors. You don't have to be in your 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s to write a book.
Right.
You are an expert at something by the time you're 20 years old, for sure. And another example I have here is this one, Teenage Baseball Umpire. This was written by a 15-year-old.
Wow.
He just started umpiring.
Wow.
And he realized there was really no instruction for young umpires to learn how to deal with irate parents that are yelling at you out there when you're giving calls. And same thing. I mean, just the facts. Doesn't have to be a big, thick book. It just has to get done. It has to get done. It's better done than perfect is the saying that we hear so often. But better done than waiting for 2, 3, 4, 5 years to make your masterpiece as well. I mean, you make one book and you do most of your work in just a couple of weeks. You're inspired for the process by that time. Now you want to make 2, 3, 4, 5 books. And if you are in business, what better way to showcase your total domination of a specific focus in industry than to have a little product line of your own with 4, 5, 6, 7 books, all related to your topic. And that's the way to go.
That's fantastic. That's wow. And it's funny. I'm thinking of this teenager that wrote this book, right? Yeah. He's a teenage umpire. I don't know how many of those are in the world, but I'm assuming it's a small number, right? If he would have waited, he wouldn't have had that perspective anymore of being a teenage umpire.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
And now that's available for all of the teenage umpires out there, right? For all of the high schools, all of the recreational teams, the little leagues, this, that, the other thing, right? That's available. And I can't imagine there's another book out there or if there are, there aren't many, right? So,
Not specific to that, no, because they're all written by really experienced MLB umpires. I mean, if you want to be a world-class umpire, absolutely get those books. But for a kid just starting out, and he sees all his friends that are flipping burgers down the street, and they don't want that kind of job, what else is there? Well, you've just been kicked off the baseball team. You didn't make it to varsity. So what are you going to do? Stay around the game. Be outside. There is a glut. We found this out, of course, in our research when we were working on the book, that there is a glut of umpires for baseball and softball. Let's not forget the girls. Softball is a big rising sport throughout the whole country. My daughter plays competitive softball. And there are never enough umpires for all of these leagues. It's so easy to walk in to any municipal building and just say, hey, I want to fill out an application to be an umpire. And there you go. I mean, you can make $200, $300, $400 in a weekend once you start umpiring. Wow. There's a lot of money involved with umpiring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great for a kid.
Oh my gosh, I mean, I know that's more than I made, working a weekend job. That's more than anybody I know made working a weekend job. So that's what a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah. I know one municipality that every spring they buy 15 of these books. Mm-hmm. And pass them out to all their new umpires that are teenagers, and they use the book to help teach these kids how to become teenage umpires. So I mean, that's the thing to look forward to with the book, is as it spreads, as the right people learn of the book, they start getting quantities and distributing your book to people. I mean, you still can definitely make money from the actual sale of books.
Oh, sure. And it may not sound like a lot, I mean, what is the book? $10. So if they buy 15 copies, it's $150. For a teenager, that's awesome. That's going out money, you know what I mean? And for an entrepreneur, right, that's a little extra. Yeah. For people who are probably going to hire you, right? Or might hire you, or might become your brand evangelist. Or so the potential of the money after the sale is huge.
Absolutely. I mean, people have started businesses as a result of their book. I actually have an example. Where's my Hazel here? Hazel Ramsbotham was 88 years old when she started working on her book with us. Thanks. The content itself took about a week and a half. Hers is a little bit thicker. It was a little bit more in a week. It took about a week and a half, okay, to produce the content for this. And she, she's not going to sit down and type out a whole book. Of course not. But we got her on the phone, and we did the same process with her. And we, how we were talking about having 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. She's been around a long time. She has 88 things that she has people. Yeah. And she's a former piano instructor, and of course, it turns out that there are 88 keys on a piano. Right. So it's just a logical flow into that title, but there is no boundary of age. People think I'm too young to write a book, or I'm too old to write a book, and it's just not true. But with Hazel, she actually started a business a couple of years before she wrote this book. She is a Juice Plus distributor, and she goes around the world, at least when, COVID free and all that, and she would give speeches to talk about her experience with Juice Plus. And part of that is in this book as well. But the speeches I've seen where she's given, 88 years old, and she still does push-ups in front of the crowd. I mean, she gets up there on stage and she'll do push-ups in front of the crowd. That's so cool. And she's almost 90 now. I mean, it's really amazing. But I mean, this book helped to boost her career. She has 50 books produced by Amazon in a box wherever she speaks. And she has them send the box right to the venue, and within 10 minutes, all sold out.
They sell out. Yeah. That's fantastic. That's awesome. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
Sure. They can go to producemybook.com. We have a free white paper that everybody should look at. It's called 121 realistic methods for selling books. So you just go to producemybook.com, click on the Sell More Books tab, sign up for that, and that will help you with your next 3 years of a marketing plan for your book. So putting the content development aside for a minute, think of it as a business plan for adding to your business. So you want to have that plan in advance, and that is the start of it, is to just have that vision of where you're going to take your book first.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really just kind of jazzed, and I want to see more of the books that come out of the work that you do, and yeah, I mean, and that you will do in the future.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an important message. We are trying to change the whole industry. There's really no reason to get up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning and be writing and having writer's block and all that stuff. Those days are over with. I've done that. No more. This is the way to do it.
Awesome. Well, go to producemybook.com, get that white paper. I know I'm going to go there right after this and get the white paper. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for those of you who have been watching, and for those of you who will watch later. This is Coffee with Entrepreneurs, signing off.